Now, the opening of the consulate in Greenland is sparking hopes for more collaboration on defense, not only in the face of annexation threats from the U.S., but also military threats from China and Russia. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand is calling Arctic defense a, quote, unquestionable national security priority of this government. Have a listen.
This is, of course, against a backdrop of a changing global threat environment, a volatile geopolitical environment, especially as we see Russian infrastructure moving further and further north towards the Arctic Circle. That means that Arctic countries need to cooperate together. We will be opening a consulate in Anchorage later this year. We are working closely with the Nordic Five. We call it the Nordic 5+1.
Here now to talk more about the importance of that message on Arctic sovereignty and defense is the former Chief of the Defense Staff, General Tom Lawson. Welcome back to Power Play.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
General Lawson, I wanted to pick up on what Minister Anand was just saying right there. She's saying that there's no doubt that the geopolitical environment is volatile right now. So what signal do you think Canada is sending today, not only to our NATO allies, but the rest of the world as well, by opening that consulate in Greenland?
Yeah, I think it's a very strong signal, and I'm very happy with it. Canada can exert its influence in several ways, of course, by deploying troops is one way, but diplomatically is another way. And I think to be together with the French, who are also opening a consulate right now, but so many other NATO nations that have stood up and sent troops into Greenland, this is the sort of partnership that the United States can expect to face whenever they try and exert influence in areas that really aren't theirs. And I think it may pay off for Canada in other concerns to come.
I wanted to ask you, because Canada does lead exercises in the north as part of Operation Nanook, do you think that Canada should take on a leadership role for any kind of future mission to Greenland?
Well, I'm not sure. Certainly that wouldn't be up to us. Any decision on leading exercises over there would be first Greenland and Denmark inviting us in. But yes, I think it's probably easier for Canadians to deploy into Greenland than any other NATO nation, it only being an hour hop from Iqaluit in Nunavut. So I think that we're well positioned to hop across there, but I think we should also recognize that it is more difficult for the Canadian military to deploy to and operate into our own Arctic and Arctic archipelago than it is to deploy right across to Europe. It's just very little infrastructure up there, very harsh climate, and distances that are incalculable until you overfly them. But yes, I think that if there is an idea of exercising more in Greenland, Canada is well positioned to take part in that.
Picking up on that point then, what would you like to see from this government now that we do have a foothold in Greenland and a little bit of, a presence there? What do we now need to do, as Minister Anand had said, okay, maybe we're going to put a consulate in Anchorage. What more do we need to do in the north to really secure that part of the country and making sure that not only are we fending off potential threats from the north that could come from either China or Russia, but also making sure that we are securing that part of the continent, because we know that the U.S. has been asking us to do so?
Yeah, I'll pick up on the last part of what you said right there. I don't think that the threat from the Chinese or Russians has increased. I mean, I'm not given any intel anymore like I used to get, but I don't know that the threats have been increased at all any more than they were before. And that doesn't diminish the threats that the Russian long-range aviation have long represented to North America, and that threat would come up over the north. But I think to the second part of your point there, the American interest in the Canadian North has increased in much the same way it's increased in Greenland. And so to your point, what should Canada be doing up there? Well, they are starting to do the things up there that probably we should have been into decades ago. When I was Chief of Defense, Prime Minister Harper would travel up there once a year with a contingent, and it was very highly popular, and it sort of signaled where he wanted to go with the Arctic. But I don't think, certainly when you're only putting 1.2 of your gross domestic product into all of defense, there was anything left over to put up into the Arctic. We opened up a center of excellence up in the Arctic, but not much more than that. But now we have a government that is investing in the Canadian Arctic in ways that we should have been so many years ago. A fleet of constellation of satellites in highly elliptical orbit, which would give 100% communication all through the Canadian Arctic. Also provide us sensors that will allow us to know what's going on up there. We really haven't been able to detect anybody who might be in our Arctic until now. On top of that, the Canadian Army is buying 170 new vehicles that can travel around up there. More exercises. We'll have unmanned aerial vehicles, crossbow sensors up there, underwater sensors. All of these billions of dollars worth of investments are starting now. Won't be in place for some years, but they say that Canada is really serious about controlling our Arctic archipelago.
Yeah, on that investment piece, I wanted to ask you, the Liberal government is expected to release its new defense industrial strategy next week. I'm curious, what are you watching out for when it will be released?
Well, that's a very important document that's coming along, and that applies to a whole lot more than the Canadian Arctic. What I'm very interested in, as it comes out, is what areas Canada is going to be investing in, first of all, but then how they are going to proceduralize getting money onto the ground, because the Canadian procurement system has been paralytic for so many years that there needs to be a new system to allow money to get out there much more quickly. And that will include a Secretary of State or a minister who actually has the power to make decisions, take into consideration all the departments, but make decisions on behalf of the Canadian government. That's what I'm going to be listening for. The DIS will come out, and then we'll start to get an idea of how they're going to operationalize getting money onto the streets for these investments.
Okay, we're going to have to leave the conversation there. Former Chief of the Defense Staff, retired General Tom Lawson, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.